Welcome to episode 46 of the Mile 20 podcast where epic shit happens. I'm Lori and I'm here with my bestie.
Laura,
And we're here today
we're going to interview Coach Q.
in just a little bit. So we're looking forward to that. He is the race director for Jekyll Island. Laura, I guess are we going to have an epic? I have no epic. We have an epic week update. I have no Mile 20 beverage. I am not operating on all four cylinders right now.
Yeah, why, my friend? What happened to you?
I came down with the flu
Yeah.
on
This was
Thursday
like after
night.
our last episode, and Lori and I were basically sharing a microphone. And the next day
24 hours later, I
she
was
was like,
feverish.
yeah, I am not well. And I was like, shit, we were so close. And, knock on wood, I feel so bad that you got sick, but I'm really glad I haven't gotten sick yet. So,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that knocked your ass out, man. Like you've been down and out for like a week,
Yeah.
almost a week.
It's been not fun, especially because um there was big news in my family that was
Yeah.
celebrated on Saturday, and I feel like I missed all this big stuff in my family. Um
What news do you have?
Maggie got engaged.
Maggie's got engaged to
She got
Connor.
pro she got proposed to on Friday night, and we got it. I got the call and pictures, and yep, my baby girl's getting married.
We are so incredibly happy for them. I'm over the moon for them. They're the cutest couple and we love Connor. So
I
yeah.
do. I was so ready to welcome him into the family, but it did feel a bit like a fever dream because I was actually feverish when they called me, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is like today of all days."
Oh,
And
I
then
know.
they were doing a bar. We were supposed to bar crawl on Saturday in Phoenixville and watch them light the phoenix. They do a big wooden phoenix burning to celebrate. And I was home. I missed the Eagles game.
Yeah,
It
you
was
missed the
just the
Eagles game on Sunday. Like, yeah,
yeah,
girl. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
rough.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to make the podcast today because, it just getting up and seeing you move around a little bit it makes me feel much better about where you're at. Because, like every
I'm
day it was
getting
just
there.
like, oh, it's just checking in on you and you're like, yeah, dude, I'm still got a fever. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for you. It's never a good time to be sick.
Never. But of
Yeah.
all the days, I guess it was probably better than some. But
Yeah.
anyway, what about your epic week update?
Well, being that you got sick, like you basically kind of came down with this thing on Thursday. Thursday night, you and I had plans to meet up with the West Point Marathon team. And so the West Point Marathon team they take the Army Navy game ball, so football, and they run it from West Point to wherever the game is being held. So last year they ran it up to Boston, Massachusetts, because they played in outside of Boston. They played at Gillette, Stadium. This year they were playing at the Ravens Stadium down in Baltimore. So they ran the ball from West Point down to Baltimore. So they were running through our area on Thursday night. So, when texted me and you're like, dude, I might be able to rally, I got a sore throat. And like, as soon as you told me you had a sore throat, I'm like, oh, she's not fucking coming. Like, and it wasn't like, oh, she's not coming. It was like, oh no, like you're not getting in my car with me. Like, if you're starting to get sick, like, no, mama, don't want that.
Which I
So
was grateful for because honestly, I didn't need to be out into the cold.
no, you did not. And it and
It
it
was
was and it
bad.
was chilly, but because I went and told the cadet, that I had talked to, or that I was emailing that I was going to be there, class of '93, yada yada yada. I stuck with it, so I got in the Jeep. I had made up my big Go Army Beat Navy signs. And it was cool. Met up with the team up in King of Prussia, PA. So it was right by the big mall up there. There were two other gentlemen. One was from class of '64, another guy from I think like class of 72. They were former marathon runners. Dude,
That's
the
awesome.
one guy from the 64 class, he had his old marathon like tracksuit. And this thing was like canvas. I was like, oh shit, I couldn't even imagine.
Oh my
Like one, it's
gosh.
remarkable that the thing is still like, in fantastic shape. But
Yeah.
yeah, this thing was like canvas. But the really cool thing is that I got some just quality one-on-one time with a bunch of the cadets and was talking to them, telling them I was so proud of like what they were doing, explained that I run with my best friend, we ran the 50 states. Next thing you know, they're like, what race did you do in West Virginia, and what did you do in Illinois, what did you do in Texas, because it was from all the states that they were from. So
Right.
I was like rattling everything off, and it was fun. But then one of the girls comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, do you know my mom, Mandy?" And so this girl, Josie, who was one of the cadets, she's the daughter of one of my female classmates from West Point.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah,
Wait,
so
the ones
yeah,
that go on the retreat with you?
yes, yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so I got my picture taken with her and sent the picture to Mandy, and it was so funny because like Mandy within like I don't know 15 minutes like texted me back, and it was like 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so it was really neat to see them, do like the next leg, and they do it very similar to a Ragnar where they follow in a van and have a couple of runners, do the legs of that particular stint. So I did that Thursday night. Friday I was kind of good for nothing. I was very very tired, but
I'm
rallied. I,
sure.
I still worked on Friday, and then Saturday we had my nephew William with us. And we ended up going to an arcade called Arnold's, which is, just north of us here off of Route 422 in PA. And then we hit a dinner with him where he got to order filet mignon. That's his meal, little spoiled guy, which I love. And then we went to the Phoenix burning. So I did get to go and see Maggie and Connor, and I saw DJ and Mari, and I met a whole bunch of Connor's, some of his high school friends that were there. I thought it was the sweetest thing that when I went and hugged Connor, he picked me up.
Aw.
So I think I said to him at some point, I was like, I can be the official second mama to you too, and
Yeah.
so that was awesome. But Maggie felt awful because she's like, my mom hasn't seen the ring in person yet, and here I was like, but I'm second mama. I was like, it's okay, like it's
It's
okay. It
okay.
would be
It
different if it was
is.
somebody else, but so but it absolutely gorgeous. They were both beaming and just so incredibly proud of them. So.
It was
And
cute. Both Connor, not Connor, DJ and Mari came over in the morning on Sunday morning and hung out with us for a bit. Mari actually shoveled our driveway after the snow,
oh,
just because she's never really shoveled before and wanted to know what it's like. And she's like, I'm really enjoying this. And then Maggie and Connor came over and watched the game with us. So it was
oh,
nice.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I didn't go to the game on Sunday. My nephew took my ticket, and I got some much needed like just like R&R time. Got some things done. I hand wrote out all my teams like Christmas cards. So just kind of got some stuff like that done. So, but yeah, no, I'm looking forward to you being better. And getting in our next run, and you becoming part of society again. So.
I know, me too. I'm just ready for my energy to come back.
Yeah. So we are going to cut on over to our interview with Coach Q. All right. Hey, folks. So tonight we have a very special guest with us. His name is Rogelio Quintanar, otherwise known as Coach Q. So we're going to call you Coach Q for the rest of the night, man, because that like makes it so much easier.
However you want to flirt with me, it's good.
Or like Rogelio. we got a little backstory joke on that one earlier. But Coach Q, he's a lifelong runner and he's a certified RRCA coach whose journey started in the 80s in Chicago. And we understand that it was after trading in breakdancing for cross country. So that's maybe a little bit of a story later on. He was a collegiate standout at Carroll University, and he went on to race marathons and ultras. So we're not worthy. We're not worthy. We do not do ultras.
Nope.
And then that was including the Western States 100. And he has since coached runners of all levels, up to Boston qualifiers, major marathon finishes, and champion successes. So, welcome, Coach Q, to the Mile 20 podcast. We are super excited to have you here. And Coach Q is also our race director for the Jekyll Island Marathon that Lori and I are running in January. So we are absolutely loving that you could join us today. And we have a ton of questions for you.
Yes. Welcome.
Excellent. Well, welcome. And so, Lori and Laura, thank you for having me. And also, thank you for registering for Jekyll Island. We're looking forward to, even though we're meeting here virtually, I look forward to meeting you in person. And
Oh, ditto, ditto.
there-
Yeah,
and
that would be absolutely fantastic. We're getting in a long weekend with our hubbies. Why don't
Yeah.
we go down
you're,
there?
you're bringing them as well. Are they
Oh,
running?
Yeah.
yeah.
They're not running.
Okay.
No.
There can only be one superstar in the family, right?
That's absolutely right. We cannot share the podium with our husbands. So
Well,
we're
we share them with our daughters,
There
though.
you go. There you go.
And
Yes.
sometimes my husband, but it's rare.
yeah. Yeah, no, my husband is definitely like back of the pack, kind of thing. So Coach Q, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Because I mean, maybe we get a little bit of insight on the breakdancing thing and really how you got into running. Because sounds like you got into running much younger than Lori and I. We didn't start running until we were like well into our 30s.
Yeah. So, I always put those nuggets in the bios because you just never know who's going to read it. And if
We've
people
read them.
read it, well, somebody did. Thank you. And interesting, and I'm sure we'll get to it. It kind of, it's also important as a race director when we send out information to our runners, our participants. A lot of it is written material and we want them to read it. And I've, in the last couple of years, have put in these little Easter eggs, or as I like to say, the brown M&Ms, if you know the Van Halen story, right? And to see if people read it. And last year, and I won't give it away here because I'm going to do the same for this coming Jekyll event, is people who actually read it came up and gave me the things that I had pointed out in the runner handbook. So I know
Oh.
at least 3 people read it.
That's awesome. Well, Lori, we're gonna have to read the handbook now.
It hasn't gone
Now
out
I
yet.
definitely need to pay attention
It
for
hasn't
sure.
gone out
Yes.
yet. It'll go out in the beginning of January. Um, but
Love
anyway,
it.
to the other to your point about the breakdancing, I'm a child of the 80s. Graduated high school back in '88 and ran cross country in high school on the kind of a dare from a friend of mine who said, "Hey, you need to do something when you go to high school. You need to be in a sport or something." And 80s Chicago, it was the Bears, the Bulls, it was basketball, it was football. I knew nothing about cross country, absolutely nothing. And he said, "Oh yeah, my older brother, he ran cross country and I think you'd like it." I'm like, I don't even know what it is. And so I went to the first day of practice and the coaches had us do a time trial, a mile time trial, 4 laps around the track, or 1600 for the purists out there. And I thought I was dying. I finished 4 laps, and then I sat at the Gatorade cooler, and just chugged Gatorade. Again, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what was happening with my body. And then I went home, and literally a couple of hours later, it all came back up. It was
Oh,
and it was this green fluorescent Gatorade that they used to give out to the high schools back in the 80s. And it was just, and sorry if anybody's listening to this while they're eating, but it was just this green
Slime.
fluorescent. Yeah, exactly. It was like Ghostbusters. Yeah, the slime. And then the torture of it is that we did 2-a-days. And so that afternoon, the coach said, "Okay, you need to be back here so that we can do our afternoon workout." And I thought, it's crazy, but I went. And then I never stopped. It got under my skin. And then it got even more under my skin when I came home. I somehow managed to bring home some hardware or metal or something. And my mom was just beside herself. She's like, "Oh my God, this is the," I mean, in her eyes, it was a gold medal. And that's all
Oh,
you want
that's
Oh
from your
awesome.
yeah.
mom. That's all you want from your mom, right? That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it was like, well, I'm just going to do what I can to bring home more hardware because shit, if mom likes this, Um, and so that's what started it. And so then I ran track and, had some decent success in high school and, was recruited a little bit and ended up, like you had mentioned, at at Carroll College at the time. And then now it's Carroll University. And did, fairly well, I didn't embarrass myself.
Right.
And then afterwards, um, just kept going and, eventually got into marathoning and also, like you mentioned, got into ultra running, which has been a lot of fun. And then kind of in between that, again, almost kind of like my running journey fell into race directing and putting on these events. And, it's been now, good Lord, almost 20 years of producing events
Wow.
and running since I was in, 15-year-old high school kids. Well, I'm not running as much now. Um, and, your listeners can't see that, you're talking to a very old, decrepit, wrinkly old man. Um,
Well,
So you can't say you're decrepit and old because you're right around the age of Lori and I as well.
well, you guys are aging well. You guys are like a fine wine.
no,
I, you know,
we're just hiding it. That's all. It's all
Uh,
hidden beneath the hat right now.
so yeah, so that's how I ended up where I'm at now. And it's been, it's been quite a journey for sure.
I,
did you end up having a mentor when you were in high school or in college
Mm,
that like,
it
just that somebody
like
that
a
you can
running
like talk
mentor.
to about running?
We had high school. I had some really good coaches. Our high school coaches were fantastic. We in my high school we had, the more stoic. We had the best of both worlds. We had the stoic coach, the one who did the A, B, C's, and D's, and then we had the more colorful coach that was the one that yelled the loudest and really got everybody pumped up.
The rah rah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was also very important in the development of, I think, like any coach, any type of coach. You want to have the foundation. You want to know what you're talking about, but you also want to be this cheerleader for these young folks. These young kids, these young minds and bodies that are, choosing to do this crazy sport. And I was lucky in high school that I had, those two types of personalities. And then when I got to college, it's different because in college, I mean, you're supposed to be older and more mature. Again, thank God social media didn't exist back then.
Yes.
Um, and the coaches there, were not that much older than we were.
Mm,
So it was almost a kind of a peer relationship, but a
Mm.
respectful one, because
right.
they, obviously were elevated to this coaching position. And so in a sense, they were um, they were mentors in a way, but not in that kind of traditional Obi-Wan Luke, kind of the older, sage advice type of um, mentor, but somebody that was very approachable, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm fascinated by the psychology because we're marathon runners, we've done
Absolutely.
quite a few of them, so we're not new to that distance. However, quite frequently when we're done with the marathon, like I'm done. Like I'm good. Like I feel satisfied with my
Right.
running journey for the day. What is the psychology that drives you to go, well, you know what? 32, 50, 100 miles, like, yeah, why not?
That feels good today.
Like how does that next step happen in your head? Because I have not found that within me yet, or
It's
maybe
fun.
ever.
Right. It's so funny when, so after I graduated from college and, stayed this was in the Milwaukee area, Wisconsin, shout out, go Badgers. Um, the running community there is very vibrant. And, of course I had a lot of friends and, folks that, made up that running community. And there were I would say maybe a handful of, young in their 20s runners that were doing these 50 milers, 100Ks. And to me at the time, I thought, you got to be nuts. Why would you want to do that? That is just, even the marathon. And this was at the time, we were approaching the 100th running of the Boston Marathon. So there was a lot of excitement, a lot of energy around people wanting to get to Boston to celebrate the 100th running, and we were a part of that group. So
Yeah.
and I'll be honest with you, we had no fucking idea what we were doing. Okay, no clue. We and this is, for anybody who's in our era, there was no internet, there was no, social media, there was nothing other than Runner's World, Running Times, and I think there was another publication that came out, and every couple of times throughout the year they would post or print a marathon training schedule, kind of a
I
very
remember
general,
those. Yep.
remember, very
Yeah.
I
very
remember
general,
those.
very,
Yep.
very general training plan. And me and my friends were like, okay, Boston 1996, okay, this was like April of 1995. Okay, if we want to run the 96, we've got to run a fall marathon. And like, okay, well, I'm from Chicago, so I've got to do Chicago. My buddies were from Milwaukee, so we're going to do Milwaukee. Okay, well, then let's figure out how to train for this. Again, we had no idea what we were
Yeah.
doing. Like when I think about the training programs I developed for my athletes now compared to what we did, I mean, it's a wonder that I'm sitting here to begin with, that we didn't just end up dead.
Right.
I think that's like kind of the theme for like our generation.
Right.
Very true.
Gen X,
We're survivors.
we somehow made it. Yeah. But that's the fascinating thing, so to your question about the psychology, like back then, like we didn't know what we were doing. We're young and our bodies could handle it. And I was thinking about, this was one a friend of one of the handful of us that qualified and trained for Boston. We were talking about this was a few years ago. It's like, we had this old bike path that went out, kind of went for miles. And so we thought, okay, we'll just leave a bottle of Gatorade like at the turnaround. We'll run, like this is for like a 20-mile run. We'll go out, we'll hit the turnaround, drink some Gatorade and come back. And again, now I would never write a workout like that for any of my athletes.
Can you imagine?
I know, right? Make sure you have a hydration plan. Make sure you're getting your nutrition, whatever that is. And but there's also a beauty in that ignorance and naivete, right? Like we didn't know any better. We're just going to go out, and we didn't kill ourselves, but then in retrospect, you think, God, if I would have just been more dialed in, more locked in, what could have, what would I've been able to accomplish, right? But
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not going to sit there and dwell on that or anything. But you just think about now, like if I had the coach that I am now back when I was in my 20s, I'm not saying I would have been dangerous, but I would have at least been on a suspect list. You know what I'm saying?
So with all of the running that you did, in the past, like, even the running that you do now, like, what's been like the biggest lessons that you've learned, especially as an ultra marathoner? Like, I mean, obviously, just mentioning, nutrition, hydration, any other nuggets that you're like, this was a good like life lesson as I kind of went through that in my life journey.
Okay, two things. One, I would say that in chasing marathon times, fast times, I think at least a group that I was, let's just use Boston as the kind of the tip of the spear, or as you will, or the kind of what the pinnacle of what everybody's chasing, right? Everybody wants to qualify for Boston. Everybody's chasing those times depending on your age group. And for me, one of the things that I learned, not just from training like adult athletes, but I also coach high school athletes as well, is talking about efficiency. I think many times people get focused on wanting to run faster and not, instead of running efficiently. When you work with your body and you make your body more efficient, those times the times are going to show, they're going to reflect in what you've been doing to be more efficient. What do I mean by efficient? It's by training smart, by doing the weight training, by doing the mental and the spiritual work. I think that's another piece that I think a lot of times you either don't hear about it or you don't talk about it, or maybe you hear more about it in the ultra sphere, because you're out there for much longer, and you're not as worried about maybe finishing fast or chasing a specific time. I mean, not that folks aren't, certainly people at the front of the pack of those races, which are incredible that they're running that fast for that long.
Oh, it is a
Yes.
gift. It is a
But
gift.
right,
Yes.
A gift and a lot of work,
right,
Yeah.
and probably some mental health issues, but
Yes.
that's another podcast. but but to me, it was learning about being more efficient. The more efficient you are, the easier you're going to move through the air, over the terrain, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to be more efficient. Because I don't like folks getting caught up on, I want to be faster, because that's really not the goal. I mean,
Yeah.
yes it is, but to me, the more efficient you become, the more efficient you are in your training. Not only will you see those times, but you're also going to have longevity, because you're training smart, you're being more efficient, and you're not getting injured. You're not, doing things to your body that are going to catch up to you much later. What I like about ultras is, again, it's not necessarily the focus on speed, or, who's going to, sub 3, or, 240s, 230s, or whatever the case may be. It's really just about being out running and just challenging your body to do a 100-mile race, to do a 50-mile race, and if you've been to an ultra race, or even a marathon, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but when you see somebody finish a 100-mile race, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so to me, the nice thing about ultras is that in general, I don't feel like there's that emphasis on wanting to be a faster, get from point A to point B, as fast as you can. It's more about the journey, and not to sound cheesy or cliche, but just set that goal and finish the race. As simple as that sounds.
Well, I mean, to just go and say, like a finished race. I mean, a 100-mile race. Like I'm just mentally like kind of,
I mean,
that
that's
like
20 plus hours of running, right? 24 hours.
right.
Or more, depending
Yeah,
on
right.
Well, for
Because
us, it would be about 2 days.
yeah, it would be
right,
at least 2 days. I mean, because we're back at the Packers, Coach Q. But that
that's where the
it
party's
puts it in
at.
perspective, because
Right.
like we both live outside of the Philadelphia area, and I'm about like roughly about 26 miles outside of Philly. So I'm just like kind of doing the math. I'm like, it's one thing to go and say, oh, like running a marathon is like from running from my house to Philadelphia. Hey, that's
Yep.
kind of badass. But
Right.
when you
It is.
but when you talk about like 100-miler, you're like, and then I'm gonna come back, and then I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
go there again, and then
Mm-hmm.
like to me, like that is just absolutely remarkable, and irregardless of whether you do it for time or not, it is got to be like, because we always talk about like mile 20, right? In a
Mm-hmm.
marathon is
Mm-hmm.
traditionally where you hit that wall, right?
Right.
And you have to make a decision, do I stay or do I go, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And I can't even imagine the battle of mind and body that you endure running 100-mile race. Like, do you end up going and hitting a wall about like 5 times, 10 times, and like it's constantly that battle, or like how do you get past that? Because that's just fascinating to me.
Having alcohol in your Camelback. You know, there-
You're
I
our
mean,
kind of
that's
people. You're
right. You
our
know what I'm
people.
saying? I mean, let's
Wait,
just
what's your preference? What's your
real
preference?
talk,
What's your go-to?
real talk, right?
Yeah, real
Let's just
talk.
put it out there.
Real talk.
Real talk.
You know, here's the thing about ultras that I love is, again, it's not it's the challenge. It's not um like it's the challenge of one, setting the goal, right? I want to run this race, and I can. There's so many ultras out there now that you have your lay of the land.
Yeah.
And of course, people now look at Western. It's like that's the Boston of the ultra community, right? People want to get into Western, which is a lot more difficult than getting into Boston, just in terms of numbers.
Wow.
I mean, there's
Yeah,
only
they only take 100 runners. Is that right?
well,
Or,
they have 369 slots,
uh,
but when you take away the returning runners, they afford the top 10 runners spots for the next year, and then sponsor spots, and then by the time you kind of eliminate those position those slots, you only have like 260 slots left. And
Wow.
Wow.
in this year's lottery, which just took place last Saturday, they had over 11,000 entries for the
Holy
Wow.
260
crap.
spots.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's one thing to be competitive, just to finish a 100-mile race, to get and that in itself is a celebration. But then to try to get into that race, I mean, it's luck. It really is,
Yeah.
because when you look at the numbers, it's just and the funny thing is when I think back to the 90s, when there were just a few of us, or not me, but a few of my friends that were doing some of the longer races. If you wanted to get into Western states, you could literally go the day of and sign up and run it. I mean, what I'm saying is that it wasn't as competitive in terms of the numbers, and the popularity in ultra running has just ballooned in the last, the last decade, really, that
I,
it's just
I
become.
like really attribute that to like social media.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
oh,
absolutely.
just I mean, like you were talking about back in the day, early running, you relied on magazines and what races were listed in magazines, right? To be able
Exactly.
to sign up for. And now you have like this whole community of running influencers. We interviewed two gals a couple weeks ago who are running influencers, and it's just this whole other underbelly, right, of the running world that gets people who normally wouldn't be a runner or a spectator. And it gets them to get out there, or somebody who was a marathoner and said, "Hey, you know what? That race, out in California looks really badass. Like I want to
Exactly.
train for that. I want to try to get into that, right?"
Exactly.
So I think it's just it's great, but it also, it has a downside, right? Because,
Absolutely.
what used to be really easy for those of us, to get into some of these races now is a little bit more difficult, right?
Right, right, right.
But
And
it's
Yeah.
to your point about social media, I think it has, social media just in general, there's some very positive things to it, and there's some very negative things to it. I think in terms of running and training, I think you can find people, influencers or athletes, that are very inspirational, and you can look at their pages and see what they're doing, and feel like, oh man, this has inspired me to go out or to start running, or to just to do 3 miles today, or whatever the case may be. But then there's also, maybe there are some influencers that are really not doing it for, a benevolent purpose. It's not really about training, it's more about their own self promotion.
yes.
Yeah.
And,
Mm-hmm.
then there might be doing training that maybe I would not recommend, or if somebody doesn't have an understanding of how to approach training, it could lead to things that, either an injury, or, just having somebody do something more that more volume or more mileage before they're really ready to do it, because they've been inspired by whatever. And so I think the cautionary note for folks is just, like with anything on social media, is just be careful,
Yeah.
um, about what you're digesting, because the last thing I want anybody to be is injured, and then not be able to do this wonderful sport that we all love.
No, that's a great
Yes.
point. Really, really great point.
Yeah. We've seen some of that in the races recently, just simply, I don't know, just what people are look ill
Like bad gear,
prepared.
bad gear, bad
Bad
gear, because
gear.
I want to look like somebody I saw on social media, and you're like, wow, it looks like somebody took a wire Brillo pad and
Mm,
rubbed it like on like a girl's legs because she wore shorts that were way too short.
oh,
And it was bad.
gotcha.
It was just bad gear. But she wanted to probably look like somebody, and get a picture at the start, and I looked cute, but man, it got really ugly at mile 20,
Mile
right?
20, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's just buyer beware, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So of the races that you have done, we always talk about our favorites of
Hmm.
this and that.
Hmm.
What has been your favorite race experience that you've had and why?
Ooh, God. There are several for many different reasons, but the favorite, bar none, the one that, if it's on my epitaph, if it's somewhere, and again, this isn't, um, me blowing smoke, but West, I got lucky. I got into Western States,
Yeah.
and it took a lot. There was a lot of a community behind me being able to go and participate in this event.
Mm.
And that story is an incredible story. And, just in the training leading up to it, I told myself I have, kind of several goals. Of course, the first goal is I want to finish. you know,
Yeah.
I live at sea level, right? I live at sea level. There's plenty of oxygen here, and we don't have any mountains. We have bridges, but it's just not the same. And so I thought, I'm going to be realistic. I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. And then the secondary goal in terms of finishing was being able to, if you're familiar with Western States, they finish on the track at Placer.
Actually, can you explain Western states? Because there may be people who are listening
Sure,
that may
sure,
be here for marathoning or
sure.
just getting started running.
Yeah.
Who have no idea what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I was saying earlier, it's kind of similar to Boston in terms of its prestige in the ultra running community. And it's a 100-mile race that's held in California. It starts in Olympic Valley in California and then finishes in Auburn. So, and it goes through the Sierra Nevadas,
Mm.
crosses the American River, and it's very historic, and it has, a rich history. And like I
Mm.
was saying earlier, over the last 10 years, it has grown in popularity in terms of people wanting to run it. So thousands of people enter the lottery every year for very limited spots. And so when
Yeah.
I got into ultra running, like we moved here to this, to the coastal Georgia, and that's when I decided to get into ultra running. Right, that makes a lot of sense. But of course, or mountain ultras, right? There are a lot of course, ultras that aren't running the mountains and stuff. But to me, that was the goal. That was the goal. I wanted to be able to run these races in this event. And I ran a qualifying 100-miler in North Carolina, Umstead. Shout out to them. They are also a very wonderful, well organized event in North Carolina. And if you are looking for your first ultra experience, check out Umstead 100 in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh,
And
awesome.
it is a fantastic group of runners that put that together. And and that one also has a lottery. And I was lucky. I got into that lottery. I
Mm.
finished. So I had so I had to qualify, and they were one of the Western State qualifiers. And so I was able to use that entry to then put my name into the lottery for Western States. And when they had that lottery, my name was drawn, and I was like, okay, fuck, I guess we're going to California and to run
Like this is
Western
real
States.
now.
Right. And this has over 20,000 feet of elevation gain.
Oh,
The average elevation for the
Shit.
first 30 miles is like 7,000 feet. And again, I'm at zero. I'm at like 10 feet above sea level.
right.
And
Yes.
and again, it's like 369 folks. And you have 30 hours. Everybody's chasing that sub 24 because you get a silver belt buckled. But you're an official finisher if you finish under 30 hours, and then you get a bronze belt buckle.
Okay.
And and so getting into that, my goal was just to finish. Of course, you want to finish under 24 hours, but I of course didn't know what to expect. So I just said I just want to finish, and then again finish on the track at Placer High School, and then finish with my kids. You know,
Oh,
because again the finish, right? You just want to finish, and that was the goal. And so I made it. I was able to run and finish Western States, and it always it makes me a little emotional because it's such a unique and special experience, and to be able to have that and share that with my kids and my family was
Ah.
nothing else will top that, other than maybe an Olympic gold medal, but that's already I'm too old for that now.
I absolutely love that story, and especially
yep.
the cherry on top of the sundae there, and in terms of the support that you have with with your family, and being able to finish it, because we know, I mean, and having never trained, and probably will never train, no, I'm not gonna say
That's
probably,
what you
and will
say,
never
never.
train for an ultra, like just the time commitment that you have to, as a runner, invest in the day to day, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And your family, right? They're doing their own thing. You're
mm-hmm,
doing your
mm-hmm.
thing, right? And so there's sacrifices, like just on a day to day, right? In terms of time. So to have your family there and support you through the journey, but then to support you across the finish line, like we totally get that. We totally
and
get
Yeah.
that.
and
That's
I
some
would
good shit.
and I would and here's my suggestion to you guys with your podcast. And I don't know if you've had a guest on that has been more not the runner, but the support person, you know, the wife, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the husband, whoever. They're the ones that are constantly going to the race. They're not running, but they're the ones supporting. I would love to get that perspective from somebody, just to hear what they, because their story of chasing me along the Western States route is just as compelling as what
Oh,
I
I
did
bet.
to get to the finish. And that's just one story, right?
I
There's
bet.
Right.
Yeah.
300
Yeah.
stories. Or what you guys do when you guys run, and what are your husbands doing? Maybe they're not supporting you. Maybe they're at a bar drinking. I don't know, but you know, but you know,
Well,
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and like mine's, we actually a number of episodes ago we had both of our husbands on, and
nice,
we cross interviewed, both of
nice.
them, and
I'll have
and
to go back
it
and
was
listen to it.
great. It was
Yeah,
great to hear them, and just the pride that they both had, for both of us, in terms of because of finishing the 50 states, and
yeah,
our
yeah.
husbands were at the finish line with us with many of our kids, and that again, it was that special thing because how often, Lori, did we have, when your kids were younger, right, and they had swimming and dance, right, during the
oh yeah.
spring, and she's like, dude, like we got a 20 miler, it's got to be a 3 a.m. like meet up, and I'm like, fuck you. Can't wait for your kids to go to
Right.
college.
Now they are.
Right. And we know, and we know a lot of people that do that. I know a lot of people here in our running community here that will do the same thing. I'm dropping off my kid at soccer and I'm going to get in a quick 5 mile run, or if, they've got, volleyball up here and I'm going to try to get in a quick workout, and
Yeah.
it's just, you try to fit in it as much as you can. And I think that support system is so crucial for us to be able to do this crazy sport. And it's rare to hear somebody, just love to hear somebody, say, that sucked. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning chasing your ass with goose and this, that, and the other, but it was great, I loved it, or just
But man,
some.
you're like you're never sad. You're never sad finishing a run. And
Never.
Lori reinforced that with me about a week or so ago, where I kind of went dragging to a run, and then when we were done, I was like, yeah, I'm happy I went and did that. So it's just
Now, was that a
it's
training run or was that Rehoboth?
Training
no, no,
run.
yeah, no. It was actually we were at a an event in New York City, and she's like, "Hey, let's bring our gear and we'll get a run in, in the morning. Maybe go through Central Park." And I
Nice,
just didn't want
nice.
to bring an extra bag with me,
And I'm
but I
like,
brought
I'm
it.
bringing my shit, whether you want it to or not. I'm gonna go
so
run.
so get your shit together and let's go.
And I did. I got my shit together, and we had an awesome run, and I was
But
really,
Fantastic.
really
even
happy
during
that
the
we did it.
run, we get to Central Park. I'm like, let's run around this pond. She's like, it looks really big. And I'm like, come on. And then we did it. And it was so pretty. And there was lots of pictures.
That's funny.
We made it. We made it fun. We made it fun. So
Yeah.
so Coach Q, I mean, you like just through your story so far, you have all these really great insights, so you can totally understand how you have evolved from being, and I'm going to say just a runner, to evolving into a coach and a race director, and I'm going to give you a shout out, so you can go to qrunningco.com and learn more about Coach Q, and what he does in terms of working with individuals, with groups, as far as coaching. You got some really, really great stuff out there as far as supporting races, and how do you even start a race, and just the mechanics behind that. So how did you get from being runner to being coach, race director? I mean, it to me, it seems like an organic path, right? Because it's like, you have a passion for a sport, for a community, and, how do you stay in it? How do you continue to give back, right? And like just some of your early stories about being in high school and college, really sounds like you connected with some meaningful people who were your coaches. So how did you just kind of get on that journey to being coach and race director?
Well, the race director story, or that journey, is a little funny. Much like running, how I got into it was somebody else. It was really somebody else's idea. So like I'd mentioned, my friend was like, oh yeah, we should go out for cross country. I'm like, okay. And then here I am. And then fast forward to when we moved to coastal Georgia, my sister-in-law was part of the PTA for one of the local elementary schools. And so this is back in, I think it was 2009, 2010. And so there's a local race called the Super Dolphin Day Run, which is a 10K, 5K now. And it started out as a 5K, I believe, back in the 70s. So this thing has been around for over
Wow.
40 years now. And she said, "Hey, you're a runner. Do you want to help out?" And I was thinking, I've run 5Ks, marathons, the gamut. How hard could that be? Famous last words, right? And
Yes.
so I took a deep dive and then race day came and it wasn't a complete shit show, but I definitely came away with an appreciation of what goes into managing and planning an event like a run, whether it's a 5K or a marathon. And that from that point on, I, and this is also working full time, with a family, and then being able to kind of get my education in, it's event planning,
Yeah.
it's working with stakeholders, it's, marketing, it's kind of all those things, and trying to figure out how to make that, or first of all, just understanding how it works, and then pulling it off. And so the first couple years, or the first year that we were involved, like I said, I mean, it was by all measures, it was a success, But then I felt like, oh wait, we could do things so much better. And I'm one of those folks that once I lock into an idea, I'm going to do a deep dive. I'm going to educate myself as much as I can. I'm going to try to figure out what's going to be the best way to make this work. And the first thing we had to do was we needed to change the courses, because where the race is held, traffic was becoming more and more and more voluminous. It was just more and more traffic. And
Yeah.
the route,
Yeah.
when it was first created, this was back in the 70s when the traffic in this area was not what it is now. And so we made some changes. And then the other part is, this was on an island. And what does an island have? It has beautiful vistas because we're on an island. And so the race had finished in front of this building, when literally on the other side of the building was this huge green space that had these vistas of the water and, this kind of this beautiful landscape. I'm thinking, why aren't we finishing over there?
Yeah.
This makes more sense. And so we made all those changes and we added some, and not just me, but, the running part of it. I learned how to certify and measure courses. I learned, what was the best way to work with our local police so that we can manage, traffic and make it safe for the runners. Um, Learning about registration, platforms. Back then it was, I think Active was active back then, but now you got Run Sign Up. You have all these other,
Oh, it's
platforms.
so diverse now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. So it was just kind of learning how to do all that, and then we just saw a lot of success. We were the point of this event was to raise money for the two elementary schools, and we just got to the point where we were able to raise a lot of money because not only had not just because of the run, but also looking at how do we formulate better approach to sponsors, how do we market this event, how do we do the different things that will make this event more successful. And out of that success, then folks were like, hey, we want to do that, can you help us? Sure. And then it just kind of so on. So remember those commercials in back in the 70s, and so on and so on and so on and so on.
Yes.
And it was
Yeah.
just it was just kind of this not like a domino effect, but you know people became more interested in looking at running events as a form of creating visibility for an issue or a cause or an organization, as a vehicle to raise money for their cause or their organization, or just to put on an event
Right.
that maybe was new to the area. Back then it was just 5Ks, 10Ks. Okay, well, what if we brought a half marathon here? What if we brought a marathon to the area? What would that look like, and what would the response be? And so that's kind of how it started. And it's just kind of, you know, not snowball because we don't get snow down here, but it just kind of one thing led to the another, and here we are.
I love that. I love
So
that.
is that so did you Did Jekyll Island Marathon exist prior to you, or did you develop that marathon? Is that your brainchild?
No, it did not exist. And prior to the creation of of Jekyll, um, there had been several other types of runs that were organized, like even before like the 90s and early 2000s, that were events that were held on Jekyll. But I don't believe that there were anything longer than maybe like a 15K. And now, over the last 10 years, the half marathons, there are a couple that are held on the island, and then also, of course, the marathon. Um, but yeah, so the marathon was a creation. Um, excuse me, that was the first. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So Lori and I have never been to Jekyll Island. And
Never.
no. And
Never.
Have you been
dude,
to
I
Georgia?
lived in Georgia. I lived
You
in
did?
Georgia for 3 years. I lived in Savannah.
Oh,
My
nice.
husband was stationed at Fort Stewart,
Oh, Fort
Georgia.
Stewart. Sure, sure.
Yeah, and no, we just never made our way to Jekyll Island. So we're very excited about it because our husbands have never been there either. They're going to do a little bit of hopefully some deep sea fishing. But what
Ooh,
are what are some of the highlights?
well, hold on.
That
Have they made arrangements for fishing?
Yes.
yes.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yes.
With who?
Oh, shoot.
Tell me offline, because my brother-in-law is a charter fisherman. So if they don't, maybe they've arranged it with him.
I want to say Leslie something.
No, his name is not Leslie.
But anyway, I'll look
That's all
real
right. That's
quick.
all right.
Yeah,
Unless
so are there any just key highlights, things that you like about the Jekyll Island course? I mean,
Oh
Lori and
gosh.
I, this will be our 69th marathon. And we have our favorites,
Wow.
across the country as well, but this is a place we've never been before, so we're kind of excited about, doing another coastal race.
Okay, so I'll say this. The closest Chipotle is pretty far.
thank
Thank
God.
God.
That was
Go
beautiful.
Chipotle.
That's a deep cut right there, ladies and gentlemen.
That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut from last episode. Yes.
Yes,
It was,
thank
yeah.
you for that one. Yeah,
You
no,
have to
And
go back and listen to the
hey,
previous
I'll do
episode.
Chipotle again as long as you got the good porta johns. That's
Here's the funny thing about Porta Johns. Let's give Porta Johns their due.
oh
Due.
yes.
Their due. Sorry. Um,
Da-da-da.
so
they're
last
so
year,
important.
and this is the thing, I learn something new every year with Race Direct. Every event, I always learn something new. And so after one of our events, so after Jekyll last year, I sent out a survey. What did we do well? What didn't we do well? What would you like to see next year? And one of the respondents wrote, and I should have pulled it up, said, we need more porta potties because of my, how did he put it? Like runner induced bowel movement or something like that. And I thought, I have never in my life heard of anybody saying, I've got to look at it. I'll have, because the way they worded, I don't know if they were being facetious or funny, but it was funny, but they were being serious that like, hey, could you have more porta potties out on the course? And
That's
so,
real.
yeah, that's
real.
no, absolutely. Trust me, I've had to use them many times, during a race. But it was just really funny, the way they worded it. And so, Laura, I'm sorry, I've just lost track of the question that you had asked, but yeah, porta potties, love them.
We appreciate a really, really nice porta john, man. I think as a runner, you lose your standards for porta johns. It just like
You only
even
make
like
a note when they're very bad.
yeah,
Right,
like
right.
Lori and I, and we have season tickets to the Eagles games, and so there's always porta johns out in
Oh,
the
sure,
parking lots,
sure.
for tailgating. And there are some people who tailgate with us and say, "Oh no, I'm not going to the porta john. I'm going to wait until I go into the stadium." And it's not a great tailgating experience for them. And we're just like, whatever. I like
Yeah.
they're not the worst I've ever seen. But yes, but as a race director, thank you for listening to that
So,
one
so
dear soul that
right,
was
so
the advocate for all runners. for
Well,
the
and
Jekyll
so
Island Marathon.
so breaking news. I'm breaking news here on the mile 20 is we are going to have more porta johns on the course.
Yay!
Beautiful.
We are going to have more porta johns.
Hopefully, I won't have to see the inside of many of them.
No,
Yes,
no, no,
yes, because there
no,
is no Chipotle within how
no.
many miles?
Yeah, it's pretty far.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I think Laura, you asked the question like, what's one of the highlights of the course,
Yeah, what are the highlights?
and really the entire island. I mean, it's if you haven't been to Jekyll, so you don't have a sense of it yet. But it's they call it the jewel of Georgia for good reason. It has the physical landscape that's very beautiful. It's very historic. It's got this wonderful historic district. And of course the beaches. We're not running on the beaches, but you'll run past some beaches. Driftwood Beach, which is one of the highlights, which is something that you should go and see even before you run or after, because it's very beautiful. We've got these towering oak trees that you're going to run under, and and so yeah, so it's very flat. It's if you're
Flat's
looking
great.
for, yeah, if you're looking for a Boston qualifier, this is it, because it's flat and it's fast. So
No, we love flat races.
yeah, yeah.
We've had our good share, like the past couple of races of running,
Hmm.
coastal races and having flat courses. So
Hmm.
we will gladly go and take that.
Yes, for sure. We've not done our hill work as we should have this
No,
yet
no, no,
at all.
definitely not right now. We're yeah.
So, like, are you? Ugh, sorry, my brain is fried.
Clap, clap. Yeah.
I've been sick all weekend,
I
so
haven't seen her in like a whole week. She's been sequestered to her home. So
yeah,
Yeah.
I came down with the flu. But
Oh man.
like, so it is coastal. Do you feel like what makes this race in particular unique compared to other coastal races is probably the historic area?
I mean, definitely the historic area, the just the landscape. There's a race that Saturday. Well, our event, well, let me back up. So our event, traditionally has been known the Jekyll Island Marathon, half marathon, 10K. And so this year we've been doing a soft rebranding of, or last year we started it with renaming it to Run Jekyll. And the
Okay.
reason why we did that is because we moved, traditionally the events have been held on Sunday only. So it's been a marathon, a half marathon, and a 10K. And again, learning from our participants, the feedback that we received was we do a staggered start with with the full, then the half, and then the 10K. And we're able to use a good chunk of the roads on Jekyll, and then we migrate everybody onto the bike paths, which are
oh,
plentiful.
okay.
What we ran into, and before, and again, if you're not familiar with the island, we had traditionally started on the eastern side of the island, where Jekyll has a convention center, a large parking lot, so it's very spacious, and we could set up start finish, and it was just a lot more room. And then last year we moved to the west side, so into the historic district, and the area is a little more compressed. There's just a lot more that we're having to kind of navigate through, which is okay. But then what we're what we then what we did to help kind of the numbers, and once the folks start running, is to keep them on the road for several miles and then turn everybody onto the bike path. So what was happening is that all those three races eventually merged at some point. And even though, again, going to that runner handbook and then announcements before the race, say if you're like in the 10K and you hear the lead bike coming up behind you, please just move over so that that runner can, pass you and
Right.
move on, like slower
Yeah.
traffic to the left, faster traffic to the right, which is opposite of what you're supposed to do on the road. But you understand my point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that wasn't always happening. It wasn't as smooth of a process. And so what we did this year is moved the 5K and the 10K to Saturday, and then the half and the full to Sunday. That way, the half and the full are not going to have to worry about eventually merging with the 5K or the 10K, and then having to deal with the kind of running in and out of that traffic. And my hope is that makes for a more enjoyable experience for the participants.
I absolutely love that because Lori and I had an experience a couple of months ago during the summertime. We ran a half marathon called the Blob Run.
Oh, nice.
That's located here in Phoenixville, PA. And great race. We actually interviewed the race director for that race as well. Super, super great guy. But they did have the 5K run at the same time. And at
Mm.
some point in time, because Lori and I are a little slower, we're back of the Packers. By the time we got to the point where then the 5K converged, it was tight. It was tight on the
Mm.
bike trail, right? So
Yeah.
so thank you for that. We love it when there's good energy at the beginning of a race, especially when you have like a half and a full starting at the same time. But man, Lori and I love it when the freaking half marathoners go away and it's just us and we're like lonely. I'm so lonely, but we love it because at that point in time, right? We're kind of done with everybody else and we just want to be alone.
Yeah.
We don't like people. Let's just go.
We don't, right?
Right. Right.
Well, in theory, I really want to like people, but sometimes no.
No,
Now,
I understand.
now, Coach Q, I mean, earlier you talked about all the logistics and all the things that you learned about, being able to put on a race
Mhm, mhm.
and, so being runners, we are so appreciate, all of the hard work that goes into this. And we know that it doesn't happen, a couple weeks before. This is like a multi, month long process. But we do know, and in talking about like, hey, sometimes things go awry. Have you ever had like a race day, like nightmare moment that happened and you were like, oh, fuck. But you handled it, you moved on,
Mm.
you learned from it. Like, do you have any funny stories in that regard?
So many. Well, uh, the one example that comes to mind is so last year's Run Jekyll. The week leading up to it is when, like now my inbox is starting to get really busy, right? With
Yeah.
folks either saying, hey, I signed up for this event. Can I move down to this one? Or I got an injury. Can I move this around? Or, we're right now, we're sold out.
Which is
Which
awesome.
which is great.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you to
congrats.
everybody that's registered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. We love that you have this interest and are investing in this in our event. And I'm getting folks saying, "Can I please get into the race?" And I would love to open up the race to 50, 100 more. But the problem, as I was saying earlier, is folks will always ask, well, there's one large road that goes around Jekyll Island. Why can't we just close that down and just have everybody run it? Well, the authority, Jekyll Island is a state park. I don't think people realize that it's a state
Oh,
park.
wow.
Oh, I did
So,
not.
we have to go through a permitting process. And, I've worked with the Jekyll Island Authority for many years. We collaborate on a lot of events and they are wonderful to work with. I know the state patrol, the EMTs and the fire, it's a very collaborative effort. And as much as I would love to have everybody run and shut down the roads, they can because there are residential areas on Jekyll. And if there's an emergency, well, what's more important, 1,000 people running around the island or making sure that whomever needs that emergency assistant gets that assistance that they need. So that's why we were able to find kind of a happy medium. It's like, we'll start the race, we'll have them use the roads for as much as, makes sense. And then we'll get them onto the bike paths. And then once they're on the bike paths, then we're good to go. And that way it doesn't impede their jobs of providing, safety and security and, whatever they need to do to
Yeah.
make sure that the residents that actually live there are still able to access those services. Um,
Yeah, and you have to work with the community, right? Because
absolutely.
if you piss everybody off, right? Like so a great example of that is, Lori and I, did Ragnar's for a number of
Mm,
years
okay.
and the Ragnar race company, and Key West because that was a race that we were
Yes,
supposed to
yes,
run.
yes, yes. I know
And
this
and they
story.
they
Yeah,
came to heads, right? And now it doesn't exist there anymore. The race.
yeah.
So you have to listen to the community, and you want to keep your running community engaged, but you have to be part of the community where you are holding the race because otherwise,
Then there's no
you could
race.
be a non-existent right
Right,
in
right.
the following year and not get any of those permits, right?
So
So. Yeah.
Wait, but
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
answer your question about like one of those horror stories for a race. So last year, the week leading up to it, you're starting to not only get more emails and more communications, but you're also looking at the weather because you're looking to see what is the weather going to do. And sure enough, what shows up on the weather? The little cloud emojis, the little rain emojis. And so you get a few emails or you start seeing on social media, hey, any update on the weather? What are you guys thinking? Are you going to cancel this event? And of course, you're like, yeah, we're monitoring the situation. We'll keep everybody abreast if we have to make a decision. You go through things that every race director goes through. And so we get to Friday, and right now the weather is showing that it's going to maybe be raining overnight, which is great because it's not going to rain on the day that you're running. It's going to suck for us because we have to set up in the rain,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah.
okay. Which is fine. We can handle that. And so the day, the weekend shows up, Friday people start, we have a packet pickup on Friday, people are starting to trickle in, which is really exciting. We're meeting people from all over the country. And Saturday rolls around and, of course we're setting up, we're looking at the weather. And now the weather is showing that it's going to, it's going to be doing something. It's going to be really close to when we're starting the race. Right. And you're just like, good Lord, please, just, weather Jesus, please, 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 please. And so, it's Saturday, we kind of wrap up for the night. We try to get some sleep. We're up at 1 a.m. in the morning. We get the U-Haul going, my team gets together and we start going around. Okay, you guys are going to do the north end of the island. I'm going to get the south end. We're going to set up the aid stations. We're going to make sure everything's ready to rock and roll. And about 3 in the morning, the heavens just open up and it's just pouring. It is just pouring, pouring, pouring. I mean, it's just coming down. It's coming down in bucket. Now, this is 3 in the morning, right? We still have time for this thing to slow down. We're the ones getting wet. We're the ones, out, in the elements. And it's cool. All right. We're in the truck, we set up everything on the aid stations. We cover everything up so it doesn't get wet, but it's just coming down in buckets and buckets and it's not letting up. And then about 5 in the morning, it starts to let up, right? So it stops a little bit. And then, your phone is like ding, 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 because people are now, hey, what's the weather? What are we doing? And then all of a sudden the rain just opens up again. And it's just like,
Oh no.
it's like biblical. I'm like, I'm going to have to start building a fucking arch here in a
An
second,
arc.
because it's just coming down. And now my phone is going ding, 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 ding. Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And, at this point, I need to finish doing what's in front of me, right?
Mm.
Before I make a decision that may affect, 1,200 people.
Yeah.
That are either going to be really pissed at me or, or I don't know. And it's just coming down. It's coming down. And so, I think it was about 6:30. And at this point, the weather radar on the app and all that, it's it's going to be pretty accurate. At this, because this thing is sitting on top of us. We know if it's going to be sitting there on top of us in an hour, half an hour, whatever. It's versus 2 days ago when it's saying
Right.
it's going to be ready.
Right.
So I look at the app and I'm thinking, okay, it looks like it's going to stop like around 7:15. And I'm sorry, it's going to stop. Yeah, no, it was going to stop about 7:15. We're supposed to stop at 7. We're supposed to start at 7:30. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, okay, I can say I'm going to start at 7:30, but that means that you guys then still need to stand around in this for 15, 30 minutes to get ready to run this race. Well, that's no fun either, right? So, but the other thing is I've got police, EMT, and I only have them for a certain amount of time. So I've got to coordinate with them and say, hey guys, if I not postpone, but if I delay this 30 minutes, are you guys good with that? I'm like, yeah, we're good with that. The authority, hey, are you guys good with that? Yeah, we're okay with that. Check with because here's the other thing. I've got volunteers. I've got hundreds of volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A half hour may not seem like a lot, but some of these people say, okay, I'm gonna work until 11 o'clock. But now I'm because we're starting later, I'm gonna leave And so am I going to have now a gap of 30 minutes where nobody's going to be at this aid station or this critical intersection? Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
me.
I mean, because they're your lifeblood, all your
Exactly.
volunteers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've got to figure out, okay, am I going to be okay with that? So it's, and these conversations are happening real quick, right? Are we going to be okay here? Are we going to be okay here? Are we going to be okay here? As long as we're okay, as long as the safety and security of our runners is not, it's not compromised, we're good to go. So we're doing all that while we're getting the approvals from, the police. Because if the police say we're not going, or the
You're done. Yeah.
we're not going,
Yeah.
Right.
and it saves me a little bit because I didn't have to make that decision, but it's still, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, and again, that's where, like we were saying earlier, those relationships are really important, because if we have to make that decision, it's not a flippant one. This is, I've worked with these folks for years, and I trust them. They trust me. They know whatever decision we're making, it's for the best of not just, the island, but it's for the safety and well-being of our individuals. So we said, okay, we're going to wait for 30 minutes. We're going to, instead of starting at 7:30, we're going to start at 8. Literally at 7:15, I'm not kidding you, the rain stopped, the clouds moved away, and it was as if it hadn't rained.
Oh my goodness.
They just,
It was,
it's just a test of your skills.
Florida weather.
yeah, I don't know if it was my skills. It was weather Jesus. It was somebody.
Oh my goodness.
But so then we obviously we have to communicate that. We have to get that out to everybody. Hey, we're delaying it. Stay inside. Stay warm. Don't stand out in the rain. But then now we've got extra time where people can then now, okay, I can prepare for this. I've got 30 more minutes, 45 more minutes, and not have to stand in the rain and get soaked and be miserable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yes.
but kudos to you for having an infrastructure that, you were able to talk to, your medical support, fire, police, your volunteers, your staff, and being able to relay that out and get confirmation and then bring it back in to be able to then, communicate that to your running community, right? Because I know Lori and I have has so many races, right? And you've probably experienced this as a runner where you're on the other side of that cell phone going, fuck, like, are we doing this or not? Like, did I come all the way down here, for nothing? And we don't use the R word, by the way, Coach Q. We call it vodka. So is it gonna vodka out, or do we need our vodka jackets? We always say that, if we use the R word, it's bad luck.
It's kind of like Harry Potter and Voldemort, We just don't talk about
say
those
the name.
You don't say the name. You don't want to invoke it.
And and we've had a couple of races where we've had to
we don't say the R word,
run through vodka, but we have been fortunate. Now as
I needed some vodka.
Kind of closing out a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
I think it's like one of our second to last ones. What's been your proudest moment? I mean, thank you for sharing the vulnerability as a race director, right? In the example you just gave, because it is not an easy job, right? At all. But what's been one of your proudest moments as a race director, either for this race or any other race that you have led?
As a race director, you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, certainly, with an event like the Jekyll event, there's, they say, what's the saying? Many hands make light work, or I think there's, I can't think of the
yes.
Quote. That's it.
Is that it? I was thinking it was a little more eloquent.
You did good on that one.
But, it's the relationships that I've developed with these events, from a 5K up to this event, which requires a lot of resources. And it is not lost on me the level of support that we receive. And not just for this event, but even some, I mean, we just had our Christmas run this past weekend on Jekyll. And again, the authority has been, very gracious with us in partnering with us on a lot of our events. And what I'm proud of is in fostering those relationships. Whether you're, regardless of what you're doing, developing and maintaining relationships is key. It's so important, from the volunteers that I bring on, to the sponsors that we bring on, to the runners that have come back and have been streakers that have been running this event from the very beginning, and not just this event, but every, all the events. It's those relationships are really important. And doesn't mean we have to be best friends or best buds, but I know that at least once a year we're going to be working together to put together something that I hope, my goal is that whoever participates in it leaves feeling like, hey, that was great. We had a great time. That was a fun event. And, I want to do it again next year. And I'll
Yeah,
tell my
that's what
friends
you want,
about it.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what you want. And you want to be able to do it um, in a way that, again, that's fun, that's safe, that people will find memorable, and, that gave them this opportunity to engage in physical activity or be a part of a community, or support, if this is a fundraiser, support a cause. That, because that's the other thing, these events draw as much the competitive runner as they do the middle back of the pack, the folks that are just
Absolutely.
are
Absolutely. Because we
like
get the same damn medal, man.
so yeah, so I mean, so like I said, I've been doing this since 2009ish, so going into 15, 16 years. And to me, that's what I'm the proudest, because there are some folks
That's awesome.
that I've been working with and been doing this for many years, and that's very rewarding,
I love
and
that.
and there are some,
Yeah.
and the other cool thing that I'm proud of is that there are some events. Shout out to another event that's held on Jekyll, Under the Oaks, which is a half marathon, 10K, 5K, which is held Columbus Day weekend on Jekyll. I've worked with them now for several years, and that's a well-oiled machine. This is one of those where we can finish each other's sentences, because everybody involved is committed to making that event a success. And that's reflected in when we hear back from folks that say, hey, that was
Yeah.
a great event, or like the Dolphin Day run, people are very appreciative, because again, there's people that are committed to that, to making that a success. And so to me, that's what I'm the most proud of is
I love that.
yeah,
Thank you for
yeah,
sharing that.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah. So to close out with our listeners, can you share with us something you love about running and a key tip you learned along the way?
It's getting deep on me. A key tip. I mean, I guess in terms of a key tip would be just keep going, whether regardless of whether, you're the fast rabbit, or if you're the turtle, whatever, just keep moving. Um, I've had a couple of knee surgeries, non-running related, by the way. These knee problems
Yes.
had nothing to do with running. And my running has been almost non-existent for the last 8 years because of this, and just my body. And I'm older, I'm long in the tooth. And just do what you can to keep moving, because it's something that I miss. I've obviously found other things to do to stay in shape and to keep moving, and so on and so forth. But if running is your jam, man, just take care of your body, and worship your body, nourish it, do the right things to keep it um moving, from A to B, I would say. And what was the other part of that question, Lori?
Um, like what's something that you love about running? Just one thing that when you were running, like it was
Oh gosh,
the
I'll tell you
thing.
what I loved, this is by far one of the things that I miss the most about training, is when I was training for ultras and I would have to get my long runs done. I would get up really early in the morning, like 2, 3 in the morning, when everything is still,
Mhm.
when everything is really still and really quiet, which is different from still and quiet at 5 p.m. versus still and quiet at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m.,
Agreed.
3 a.m. in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And where we were living, or where I was training with at the time, I would be able to come out of my, and it just, there aren't a lot of street lights. So it was really dark. Uh, then I would get onto, we have a causeway that connects the mainland with the island. And you would just get these vistas, of the sky. And if it was a clear sky, you would just see, stars, um, and it's just quiet. It's peaceful. It's just you're out there, you're running, and you're just hearing your own breath, your heartbeat, and you're just, again, you're just communing with yourself and your environment. And it's just
You're
something that,
connected.
yeah, you're connected in a way
Dialed in.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, you're dialed in, and you're out there, and you're not worried about, or you're not focused on anything else. It's just, it's one of those things that I hope to be able to do again at some point. But yeah, that's one of
I
the
love
things.
that. I love that. And even if you're not running at that time in the morning, man, like when you wake up, like my favorite time is we have a house down in the Chesapeake, and I absolutely love it when I'm the first one awake and I
Yeah,
get that cup of coffee and
yeah,
I sit my
yeah,
ass like outside on the
yeah,
deck, and I'm
yeah.
looking out on the Sassafras River,
Yes. Yeah.
and I'm seeing deer, and
Yeah.
it's just like 5 in the morning, nobody else is awake, and I'm like, this is my time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just there, and I know, Laura, you do the same thing up in New York in your cabin, and it's just there's nothing like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
So for listeners who have never tried that before, and you're like, I would
Do it.
never wake up that early in the morning, just
Do it.
try it. Just freaking try it.
Do it.
And even
Do
if
it.
it's just to go for a walk, you don't even
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
go for a
Yeah.
run. Just go for a
No, go
walk.
for a
Yeah.
walk. Like it's just it is absolutely the bomb. So
Let's
we
let's let's start a movement. The 3 a.m. run walk club. Let's do it.
right.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, I tell you what,
I
you
don't want
get
to
get a
set my
little bit more
alarm for
inner
2.
peace. Well, hey, Coach Q, we absolutely loved spending, time with you. Your story, just all your perspectives on things, from being an early, runner through college, through ultras, and then your evolution into coaching and race directing. Absolutely loved hearing the story. We're really grateful that you've shared also like some insights, not only about, what the challenges have been, from your perspective being a runner, but then also, some of the challenges in the learning curve, that you have in becoming a race director as
Mm-hmm.
well, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're always learning every day, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what this podcast is about as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about taking in, new learnings every day, and just how do we continue to get better, be better people, and also build those relationships. And we feel very, very blessed now that you are in our little mile 20 circle. So when
I
we
can't
hit
wait to meet you
Jekyll,
in person.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna go and hit you in person. So, and again, to our listeners, please, if you want to check out Coach Q's information, go to qrunningco.com, and you can check out all of his information. So, Coach Q, thank you so very much. You freaking
Thank
rock.
you.
Thank you
It was
guys. Have
so
been,
amazing to meet you.
yeah, likewise. You guys have been delightful hosts, and I hope your listeners, enjoy the conversation, and look forward to the journey.
Awesome. Thank you. So, folks, absolutely fantastic interview with Coach Q. Absolutely loved hearing his story, Lori, and his journey from being a runner to race director. I don't know, maybe that's in our future at some point in time. I don't
Race
know.
director?
I don't know. That means we would have to
I'd
maybe
see us
stop
starting a
running, but
local run club before we do that.
right, yeah. But I did like his advice, and it said just keep moving.
Yeah.
And that's the message that we want to keep sending to all of our listeners, that even in your 50s, as women, and we've talked about, our menopause journey and having the flu and, everything else that, life throws at you, just keep moving. That's the
Just
most
keep moving.
important thing.
And
And
if
you know
you're
what?
not moving, it's never too late to get started.
Damn straight.
Never.
Damn
I
straight.
don't care if it's you can't get, just walk somewhere.
Yeah.
Go, just take the first step, whatever it
Just keep
is.
moving, because if you don't use it, you lose it,
Yep.
right? And you know what another
Absolutely.
important thing is to remember?
What?
Go make mile 20 your bitch this week.
Peace out.